For the past 5 seasons, I have designed my collections under the main title of Britain Must Go Pagan. By pagan, I mean the age of classical and Hellenistic Greece. I believe that we live in an age which is very uncivilized. It's less civilized than pagan Greece. Those Greeks believed in cultivating skepticism. They believed that opinions should be formed on the basis of fact, rather than emotion or passion.
I think that Vivienne has a very strong Jean Brodie quality. She's always keen on leading people out to the light. And so ancient Greece, pagan Greek love stuff, as transmuted through a screen of Edwardian writing, is what she's on about now.
I promote the idea of I wouldn't like to say strange sexuality. I play around with the idea of sexuality because I don't like orthodoxy in any shape or form. What you play around with are, first of all, the poles of masculine and feminine. And I don't think it's possible for any man to be sexy unless he's got a touch of femininity in what he's wearing. I mean, just think of Elvis Presley with a pink shirt and a kiss curl, but terribly macho and terribly, terribly sexy.
I think Vivienne's clothes are probably more innocently sexual, actually. I would say they're less overt and more charmingly innocent. I think that when you look at Vivienne's clothes, or somebody wearing Vivienne's clothes, there is an element of charm always, an element of naive innocence.
I do not believe, as people have been brought up to believe today, that sin with regard to sex means anything that is viewed as unorthodox. It's entirely for people privately to decide what they want to do. Their sexuality is their own, to do with as they wish. And pagans would have absolutely not understood. They would have been bewildered. The other thing that I'm doing with regard to Britain Must Go Pagan when I present a collection is that I am pushing the idea of elegance. Now, I have just started designing my next collection, and the only thing that I was absolutely sure of when I started to think about it was that I was going to start from this very, very English base, as I have been doing for some time. And previously, I have worked with factories in this case, the borders of Scotland, and I've asked them to coordinate fabric to match my knitwear. So here you've got a pair of tights, and I especially had them pick the colours out and make it match exactly. And everything coordinates here. And there's a cap. And this time, I didn't want to do that. I wanted it to look more accidental, so everything looks really, really juicy, tasteful, sometimes a little underplayed. But I wanted the elegance that you would get from this accidental look, as if it were really country life.
Well, Vivienne's nothing if she's not unconventional, you know. I mean, her use of tweeds is so unobvious that it makes, you know, you get that slight perverse quality to the garment, you know. to the look. She's talking about England in her clothes. She's talking about the state that we as a nation are in. She talks about the world. She talks about people's perceptions of each other. She talks about class. She talks, you know, she's got a wide vocabulary.
If you take something in the colour of this dress, but instead of having it in a jersey, you would have it in a red barathea, it would immediately remind you of fox hunting. If you took a maroon Melton, it would remind you of a schoolboy in his blazer. And every fabric, almost every traditional fabric that you look at in England has got a charge of content. And the reason for that, I believe, is because England had that empire, and there were so many facets of the empire that required a uniform.
Vivienne Westwood's particularly fond of British cloths, British woolens, British tartans and tweeds, and interprets them in a completely new way. She'll mix and match them. She'll put great gouges, great slashes in them and pull through vivid coloured linings, which are in complete contradiction to these rather heavyweight wools. She likes to go back to historic dress, but she doesn't slavishly use elements from historic dress. She takes features which she wants and can see potential in them, and then completely twists them around and makes them into something new, quite modern.
All the things that fueled her, all the obsessions she builds her work around are typically British. The whole thing about class and sex, the particular obsession with the Queen, you couldn't develop those anywhere else. And in a way, and she wouldn't like this comparison one bit, it's quite legitimate to compare her with William Morris, because she's a craftswoman working on a small scale, but with big ideas attached to the small industrial process.
This bag, which I designed for my last collection, caused me to be interested in this fabric. This fabric is linen with paint on the top. In fact, it's painter's canvas. You buy it for stretching on your picture frames if you're a painter. And I was looking at this fabric and wondering, and I knew I wanted to put it next to some Harris tweed. And I just love those two things together. Then I had a flash. I thought, I will make all the outfits remind people of oil paintings. It's a tradition in portraits that people put drapery in there. It's harking back to the Greeks all the time. When people want to ennoble themselves or to pretend that they have more passion and more profound feelings, then they have always some drapery in the picture. And you'll find a gentleman sitting in his dark suit, but in the background there'll be some velvet drape. And you had lots of things going on around the neck, very complicated collars, and that particular type of little tiny jacket. So I've put these fabrics here. So you've got some dark red velvet, very typical of Titian draped velvet. You've got some black PVC. I don't know why, but I think PVC looks great with that. Of course, I need that lovely leopard fur. And I think this is a really good job. I think this does remind you of those paintings. The real badge of our barbarity is that we do not care about art. We have an ethic in this country which you would have to label as American pragmatism. What that means is that success means money, and it means money gained in the very short term. Now then, money is not an end. Money is a means. First of all, it's a means to providing material necessity. But after that, the only legitimate reason for money is to patronize art.
Lack of money is always a problem. If you're in a business which eats up a lot of money. I don't, however, think that money is Vivienne's motivating force. I think it's a means to an end.
The British fashion industry has never been properly organised as a business in the way that the French or Italian or American fashion industry has been. So you don't get such big businesses, you don't get the same order of industrial respect, you don't get them being quoted on the stock market. So designers don't become multimillionaires. John Fairchild from Women's Wear Daily has written a book about the people he considers the great designers of the world, and Vivienne Westwood is one of them. She's the only one of them who isn't a multimillionaire.
In this century, there are limitations with regard to fashion which are not imposed upon fine art. For example, if you are a fashion designer, you are restricted in the fact that you have to design for a human body. You have to design using fabric. You cannot make a garment out of a pile of bricks. So these restrictions have at least kept fashion on the rails of something reasonably important. And perhaps at this point in time, fashion may be the most interesting art form. This age doesn't believe in technique, and invention comes from technique. It's not possible to produce anything exotic except through something traditional. All right, John, before I discuss this part of the jacket, I just want to talk about the waistcoat that it's built on. Now then, what I like about this waistcoat is, number one, I like the colouring, isn't it gorgeous? And wish they did things like that today. But anyway, now then, so what I've done is I've pinned on the shape that I want this lapel to happen.
Yes, and this part here is a complete seam. This is a seam.
Yeah.
There.
And there might be some problem here with this lapel, and I've got to talk to Roger about that, about the makeup of it. But that's the kind of fit that I want it to have.
Yes.
Now then, with regard to the sleeve, I wish really that I had a shirt on, perhaps, because just the kind of blousiness that you get on a shirt around this area here is what I want on that sleeve, that old-fashioned look to a sleeve. But I don't want it to have gathers in if you can help it.
Like a leg of mutton sleeve without the gathers at the top. You want it big this way, standing away from the arm, and also big this way, standing away from the arm.
Vivienne's effect upon other designers, I'd say, or on clothes design has been rather like a laxative, you know. Vivienne does, others follow. I think, you know, she's a thinker. She does a lot of the thinking for fashion, influencing a huge amount of other designers in the way that they perceive their own work and from the point that she actually influences the street.
Okay. Well, I've just got this jacket back, and we were to have sewn the buttons on, but before I bothered to do that, I just tested it for size, and it's not as tight as I wanted, so I keep sort of pulling it around because I really want this tight fit around the rib cage. And there's been a miscommunication with the sleeve. The shape I described was rather leg of mutton. John referred to it all the time as leg of mutton, but I didn't know he was actually going to make me the authentic leg of mutton with the seam in there. So I don't think I'll keep that. But the big advantage of talking to somebody like John is that he is so good on his sort of research and his authenticity. And there's just one little detail which John's added of his own account on the back, which is this nice little sort of cut into the back here. The whole jacket's too long, though, but if that were sort of like high up, that could look nice. So, got to get that proportion and that fit right.
I think the important question is whether in the 90s she'll develop a successful commercial setup. Because if you really want to influence people, you have to have a successful commercial setup, ultimately, to get your message across. Because she's done her polemic phase.
Now then, this is the third attempt at the little jacket which we started off with in this red barathea. We're still going to do it in red barathea, we just temporarily ran out of it. And so I'm also going to do it in tartan. And if you look at the back, actually, because the distance from here to here is very, very narrow, and you've got this really lovely rounded effect as you would have done in 1830. We've still got the little vent in the back. All right, so I love this sleeve now, I'm very happy with that. What we had to do, though, was, as I had thought, we did have to raise the armhole. Once we got rid of all that fullness, we had to make the armhole higher to make the jacket fit properly. And the thing that excites me really a lot is this collar, which is just great, just look at it. And so trying to develop a technique to get this point on here, which is quite difficult, let me tell you. I came up with a method of stitching it, and I wasn't sure if how Mr. Roby would feel about that. But the great thing about Mr. Roby is they really are interested in things, and so rather than thinking, oh God, we've never done that sort of technique before, what they did was they jumped at the chance to see if they could do it, and everybody's thrilled with it.
There's a certain generation, I suppose, who would look at some of her most amazing and inventive clothes and simply dismiss them out of hand, and not be able to see what she's doing and be quite intolerant about her work.
I think that Vivienne is very much admired abroad because basically she's a genius. And I think that for instance, the Japanese and the Italians are very able to see how really commercial Vivienne's work can be. I don't really know about the Americans. Of course, in this country, you know, we never really accept our own.
I think in the next 10 years, people are going to have to look as if they have some taste, and they're going to have to really put their clothes together with a lot of discrimination. They're going to have to make themselves look elegant. Elegant's my favourite word with regard to fashion.